Greetings and welcome. I'm Heather. I'm Heather Reiss-James, and this is our friend and our interviewee for today. This is Cifehtr.
Greetings, I am that I am, even though I am within the vessel of the Reis. Greetings.
Greetings. Thank you for being with us. We're starting our current affairs of today, and we have some topics that we're going to be covering over the next period of weeks or sooner. So, such things as climate change, the shift in consciousness of humanity, the 5G, the coronavirus, the reset of humanity and what is this, as well as a lot of other points that will arise. And I'm very excited to be delving into these with you. So just to start with, maybe I can ask you a question that we can lead on to this series of topics.
Very good. Are we going to be covering all of that today?
No, probably not. We'll be here all year.
Very good.
But we are going to make a start in this episode, in this session.
What is the question?
The first question I've got here is this. What exactly, if you can tell us, is going on with the climate? You know, we're told it's heating up, then it's not. We have climate extremists and climate deniers. What is really, really going on?
You expect me to answer this?
Well, that'd be good.
Well, again, if we do what I love to do, I go back into the history of Gaia, of Gaia. I love to go in and see how she was when she first started to create within herself, started to create within the very vibrancy of her life. What was she like? How did she mold herself? How did she bring about the clearings, and how did she bring about the changes over the millennia that she has existed? And you will find that your history and your geological patterns of the world will show you that approximately, I mean, I'm not going to say exactly X many years, because Gaia, like any sentient being, has choice and vibrational changes, but approximately anywhere between 25 to 27, normally around about the 26,000 year mark, she will start to shift and change. Her waters will slightly rise. And when I say slightly rise in temperature, I am not saying that they are going to rise 100 degrees, or they're going to rise 2 degrees, but they will rise anywhere from 0.5% to maybe 2, 3, 4% of their regular temperature. And this is enough to adjust the temperatures around your globe. This is enough to create, where it's warm, an intensity of warmth, where it's cooler, to bring it up to so that it's not as cold. You will find that as the temperatures change, your heat will also evolve and become hotter in places, and you will get extreme temperatures, and you'll have these alarmists, those who like to alarm you, saying, the area of Antarctica is overheating, it's becoming X many degrees in height of temperature, and we have another person that wishes to interview us. I will introduce her to you. Yes. Now, we are very busy, and we're discussing a very serious thing called climate change. So enough of the yak.
So you're saying that the Gaia, the planet, when we'll get into more of who Gaia and what Gaia is as a sentient being potentially in another episode, is actually self-regulating.
Indeed.
But what about our input? What about humanity?
Humanity has a slight input. And if you listen to and this is where you can go to the extremists and you can go to the alarmists, but also go to those who have been titled denials, the climate deniers. Because somewhere in the midst of that, you're going to find your truth. You're going to find the evidential evidence. And what I like to say to people is, and point to people is, if you tend to be too much at this end, oh, the world's burning, there's no good, da 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 da. Or you go to the other side and it's like, don't worry about it, nothing's going to happen. You will find, Silky, enough now. Come. You will find that there is a vibrancy of exchange happening. And this information is going to be given to you in blasts. It's going to be given to you in ways that will either shock you or will dull you. Never quite in the way of, now that's really going to make me think. I better go and do some investigation. Now, the thing is, with the climate that is happening at this particular moment, you have risen in temperature. There's no two ways about it. But it's a natural occurrence of Gaia. It is a natural occurrence of the planet, because this is something that, as I said, if you go back in your geological history, I'm not talking of your historical history, you know, that which tells you your wars and all the rest of it. I'm talking of the history of the land, geological. Now, the geological history will tell you, when you begin to study it, that X many thousand years ago, this event happened. X many thousand years ago, this event happened. And it's a geological event. And this is more truthful and more honest than your oral history. Because your oral history is always written or told to reflect the victor's monologue. Yes? But Earth will relate the story as it happens. So you will have events where that which was covered in ice no longer is covered in ice. That which is covered in desert is suddenly covered in lush forests. All of these things will happen. Now, everybody's up in arms because the North and South Pole is melting. Well, it's not melting as everybody thinks, because actually there are, and I challenge you, those who are listening to this, to actually go and find this documentation, because it's there. If you go and you research, you will find that as much as the North, or as the ice is shelving or calving, as they say, and it is melting, there is new snowfall, there is new icefall, there is new ice shelves being created. So where it's been taken away, it's also been replaced. But you don't hear about that, because that does not fit into the agenda of the climate alarmist.
Okay, so the agenda of the climate alarmists, in 2 sentences, what do you believe that is?
Oh, basically to get humanity back into fear and control and all the rest of it, to walk away from technology, walk away from the ingenuity of entrepreneurship, to become locked in a fear of, if we don't go back to rubbing sticks together, we're going to destroy the earth. You will also find that this will also overflow into your dietary demands as well. People will say you should not eat this particular product because it produces this.
So there's shaming.
There's shaming.
Human shaming.
It's human shaming, yes. It's bullying at its most glorified and heightened perception.
Okay, so look, it's a really big subject, and we can go into that more detail as we continue on with these episodes. It's a carbon tax.
It's a way of making money, yes.
Okay. Look, I'd like to talk to you about the awakening that's been spoken about. There's been different people or beings within the lightworker community that talk about 0.05% of the population. Currently, the population's around about 7,780,000,000.
Why don't you round it up to 7,800,000?
Something like that. 7,800,000,000.
Yes, somewhere.
Blah, 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 blah. And 0.05% of the population is approximately, according to my figures, only 3.9 million. So what are they saying? They're saying we need that amount of people to be awakened
for the changes of the earth to happen, yes.
Well, if there's not 3.9 million people awakened now, we're in trouble, aren't we? I mean, that's less than the population of New Zealand. So where did we get these figures from?
Well,
and tell me about this.
Well, the figures first started coming through the lightworker community, through people who channeled and people who psychically pertained information. It came around probably in the mid-80s. Though you could probably say even in the 70s, people were talking about a percentage of humanity to waken up. Because at that time, it was almost inconceivable that humans would actually reach the 9 billion or 8 billion percentage of people living. Yes, the number of people. So it was almost like also trying to indicate, and this is where I want people to understand, is that when a small fraction is used in a great equation, perhaps what you should not look at is it's 0.5% of this big number, and so that we now have only this 0.05. Yes, I'm just using an
okay.
Yeah, and so therefore you have this. Oh my goodness, you've got this little number against this big number, and how do you work it? Well, perhaps it's not so much a numbering, but intent. Perhaps it's not so much a certain quotient versus a certain quotient, but more the energy that is to be produced by people becoming conscious, by being consciously awake. You see, I'm probably going to get banned from many lightworker communities.
Okay, here we go.
There are many in the lightworker community that consider themselves awake, consider themselves enlightened, consider themselves to be teachers, but in reality they are dull, repetitive, and unawakened. Now, I do not mean to... Well, no, actually I do. I do mean to say this out loud and say it in a way that will jar you, because many have got on the tails, the coattails. Now, that's an old saying that many of you who have not been to school and learnt of the history of dressing correctly, you will not understand the shirt tail symbology, but I advise you to go and look it up. So what's happened is they jumped on the shirt tails or the coat tails, depending on which you're looking at, and they have ridden along on the current, on the energy of another being, of another teaching. So for argument's sake, you could say they piggybacked on somebody else's information. Yes? And they've regenerated or restructured or recreated the teaching, and they've put their own little mark on it, their own flavor on it, and they do not refer back to where they learned it from. They claim it as their own, and they are this great guru, this great teacher. And they will begin to focus on things like 0.05%, or they will focus on things like we need to be in meditation all the time, or they will focus on I am the mouthpiece of this particular energy, therefore you must listen to what I say. And so what they do is they gather people around them, and these are the people that I say stay away from. And to be quite honest, stay away from anybody that demands that you follow what they say and only what they say. There are many teachers that have been around for many years, 20, 30, 40 years. The Saint-Germain energy, the Cryon energy, there's been great teachers like Abraham Hicks, all of these different entities, these different beings that have come through and utilized with permission the vessels that have spoken, given voice to them, like this one is doing at this moment. And what we're trying to do when we speak about a small nucleus of energy within a group of beings is to say, even if we were to take an atom, the atom is minute. But the atom cannot function correctly if it does not have the circular nuclei, the circular parts of it, yes? It needs the equal parts of everything to create the interaction, the explosion, the growth, yes? So what is happening is this percent of the population is the catalyst. And when you have a catalyst, it's that one person in a room of 50 people that goes, but I don't believe that. And I'm not ashamed to say it. And when you have one person that says, actually, I don't agree with that. Actually, prove to me that what you're saying is actually true and correct. What that does is it makes the other person either go, oh, well, now that you mention it, I don't feel that great about that either. And so that is when we say they are the ones that are going to click the awakening over, to shift it. There is something far deeper, and there is something far more integral in the shift of awakening. Not a shift in awakening, but the shift of awakening. And it's not done on numbers of humans awakened or not awakened. It's people who become awake. Now you can have, and I've said this before, and I know that there have been other energies out there that have spoken similar, that you can have a group of beings that call themselves light workers, and they know absolutely nothing. All they're doing is regurgitating what they've heard somebody else say. They haven't done their own research. They haven't gone in and meditated and actually downloaded or uploaded or utilized the energy of the universe to get their own information. They've just followed this person, that person, and the next person. Now, a lot of what is out there on the internet is, shall we say, very loaded to the negative. It's loaded to lead you down a path of confusion or into entrapment, to take you away from your empowered beingness. So it is a little difficult if you don't know what you're doing, where to look and how to look. But this is why there are people who are not afraid of doing research, who are not afraid of sitting in front of the most vile and the most disgusting information outlets to sift the truth.
Well, it's true at the moment. There are a lot of, great people out there who are doing some wonderful research, and they're not being egoic about it. They're allowing it to come forward to share with humanity. And they're sharing with people 0.0%, 1%, it doesn't really matter. They're sharing with people who are being woken. Yes. Who you would never think would be woken, and who don't consider themselves part of a light worker community or in any regard at all. But it's happening, and they are asking hard questions.
Good. Yes. And these are the ones that are working in conjunction with the divine energy, with the divine force. Yes. Now, I would like to bring a little clarification that there is three groups. You have your enlightened group. You have those who are in the awakened energy. They don't align themselves to a particular label of I'm in the light worker, I'm a worker of light, I'm a this, I'm a that. I am awake, and I hear, and I'm conscious. And then you have the woke. They are very woke people. Just not awoke, just woke. And they are the ones that are pontificating out there. They're going out and they're speaking about all of these things that are happening, and they're drawing your attention to it. Be careful. Look at their holisticness, yes? Because when you gauge somebody, you must gauge them and judge them by the fruit of what they live by.
Can you give us an example?
Well, okay.
Give us an example of all of these.
So if you have somebody who's in the enlightened community, you see somebody who's forever and a day, they speak a certain language. Yes, they speak the enlightened language. In other words, they use terminologies of love and light, bless you. You might as well put them in the church because it's very similar in the way that they interact with each other. They have their little cornered and cloistered groups. They have a preacher, or they have one that they follow. And if anybody goes against that particular belief system or truth or whatever that has been presented here, the others are frowned against because, well, this is what XYZ said. And to be quite honest, there are people that follow Cryon, who will not hear any other being channeled or any other channeling or any other teaching that is contrary to Cryon, because Cryon is right. Now, as an ascended master, as yes, I am called Cifehtr, but I am of the energy of the Saint Shaman energy, and Cryon and I have a good relationship, and we speak quite consistently, and we share many truths. There is nothing that I say that you could turn around and say, oh, that's so against what Cryon says. You can't be right. And there is nothing that Cryon says that when you listen to what I say, you will find it is incorrect. Yes, we will at times say things and it will bounce against each other, but have you not thought that sometimes we do this rather deliberately to make you think?
Probably do.
But then there are those groups that are the awoke. The awoke they will take everything that they can off the internet. And they will word it and change it around and mutate it to present it to you in an enlightened way. It says, oh, this is the way that it goes. But then when you start to go into it, you actually find that it's a stinking mess of rotting information. There's no synergy with it. There's on the surface, it makes a lot of logical sense, but that's all it is, logic. There's no heart to it. They will give you facts and figures and facts and figures and facts and figures, but there is no heart. No. And then you have those who are conscious, those who are awake, those who are aware that there is something occurring. They've dabbled in the enlightened. They are aware of the awoke or the woke people, and they don't identify with either side. But they know that there is a divine being, a divine consciousness, a divine entity, source, whatever you label you wish to call us, that has given you, as humanity, the undefinable and undeniable God spark within you, which is the soul part of you. It is that part that questions. It's a part that seeks out the truth. It's the part of you that looks at everything and says, yeah, something's not right here. And those are the people that I would say are probably your awakening shift mechanism.
So you're talking about a balance, really, aren't you? You're talking about, I guess in Buddhism they call it the mindfulness or the middle way, that balance of person in the middle that is going, let's weigh it all up, let's have a look at it, yep, I'll take this, I'll leave that, this feels right, and they're doing their own due diligence.
Yes.
Within their own energy, their own I am as well.
Well, they check within themselves. 9 times out of 10, you will find people in this particular group have had some awareness of energy that is outside of themselves. Now, for some people, they could have come from a religious background and realized that this energy that is in the church is more than just what they've been told. So they go seeking it, and they discover it through their own study, their own research. There are others in this group that have had interference from outside entities and have realized that when they empower themselves, they can go, I'm more powerful than those. And so they take back their power and they start to resist the darkness. Yes, they resist those entities that come to feed on them. And so what happens is you find people now beginning to link their stories and go, hang on, wait a minute. When I research this, this is what I find. But when I research this, this is what I find, and there's a similarity. And so what begins to happen is it's not the love and light brigade, as I call them. Although there is those in the love and light brigade that are genuinely concerned, genuinely integrating their growth to the point where they are walking without even realizing it, and they're walking away from this culture, if I can call it, of the new age or the enlightened community, the lightworker community, which has already been made known by quite a few different organizations of the awakened people, that the new age or enlightened community of lightworkers was not born out of a desire for a conscious movement. It was born out of a manipulative movement. But we can cover that at a different story.
We can certainly cover that at a different time. Okay, next question I want to speak to you about, and I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in more of this too.
We will obviously be going through all of these different points and deeper.
This is just an introduction of some of the areas that we're going to be covering. Okay, does 5G or the current illness, coronavirus, dare I say it, have anything to do with it?
The awakening? Yes.
No. Does 5G or the current illness, coronavirus, have anything to do with it? 5G and the coronavirus?
Oh, they're linked in. They're linked in, but they also have a very big part to play with the awakening that's currently shifted on this shift that's happening on the planet.
Well, can you summarise that without spoiling everything?
Due to the all right, so I'm going to ask you to ask me the last question, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to marry that up with all of the other ones. I've read what she wants to ask me.
Okay, you've been looking at my notes.
I've been looking at her notes. So.
Okay, so the last question is, or the question I'm going to ask instead is, are we heading into a reset? If so, what can we expect to discover? And what the hell is a reset for those that don't know?
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of leeway here. I'm going to paint a verbal picture, if I may. The reset is literally when, if you were to go back to the old days when you played vinyl records, yes? You would reset by lifting up the needle and putting it at the beginning to replay a particular track, yes? In video or in recording, to reset something means that you have to reset everything to redo something. You have to set something up. If you're videoing something and something in your set goes awry, you have to reset the scene so that you can replay it, so that you can record it correctly. And so what's happening is currently at this particular moment in the human race, in the human species, there are entities and powers at hand that are attempting to reset humanity. Now, this has been done at various times in your culture, right back from when the Anunnaki tried to overtake the original humans. Now, that again is a story all of its own. You have some people that say that the Anunnaki are the original creators of humanity on this earth, and there are those that say bullshit to that. Humans lived on the earth before the Anunnaki came down.
And I think we can cover more of that in other episodes.
So stay tuned. But what I'm trying to get to with this, and the reason I'm mentioning it, is that the resetting of the human species comes from when the Anunnaki interfered with humanity. Yes, right back in those early millennia. Now, they set in place certain things, and entities have used the Anunnaki's foundation, if I can call it, or building blocks of what they did to keep humanity small and disempowered. These other entities have just carried on using that same formula, yes, of disempowering.
The other entities.
The other
We're
entities
going
to
be talking,
humans.
we'll
Yes.
talk more about that.
All right. So now what's happened? We're going to jump millennia forward, and all of a sudden, humans have been using these. They've gone from the what I did enjoy. I did enjoy it in my days, like the stick phone where you just pick up the mouth, pick it up, and you'd hold it to your ear, and you would wind it up over here, and then you would speak into the mouthpiece. I do love those old phones. Yes. And you would speak to, oh, is that you, Gloria, on the other? Yes. Can you connect me through to Santa? You had a relationship going with the people on the other end of the phone at the exchange to, connect you into the various places and all the rest. So there was a lot of human connection. Yes. Now, 5G is all of a sudden, you've gone from the dial up, the winding it all up to get your exchange to plug you into the right place. And you now have 5G. You have this wonderful microwave effect happening. I'm being a bit facetious.
Thanks.
For those of you who do not know my sense of humor. And strangely enough, in the same period that 5G is rolling out in many of the parts of the world, you have this virus that has suddenly just magically appeared from February onwards. Some of the earlier cases in January, but most of it from February onwards. And as I asked Heather to do, I asked her to do a bit of research to see when the virus actually started. Where did it start? And who started it? What nations were involved in it? And we will cover this at a later stage, but I'm going to give you a clue and say that it wasn't just China. And I'm also going to tell you that there are places around the world that have had this virus just appear, but when you do research and you go into it, you find that the person that has been infected has not been in touch with anybody that's traveled. That nobody's been in their social life that's traveled. That they haven't been, even when they've gone to the shops or something like that, and they've gone to research who was in the shopping area that may have traveled. Nobody. So in the backwater societies, these things are happening. Where did this come from? How did the virus? Oh, it's airborne. Is it? I want you to put a question mark there, and I want you to begin to question a little bit more than what you are reading and hearing through the media. We should actually question everything, even Absolutely. The alternative Absolutely. Media, even the deep alternative media. Have a look. Yes. Keep cross-reference, always cross-reference. Yeah. Now, and even challenge what I'm saying. Absolutely. Yes. Remember, there's something that I've said to many of those that come and have personal sessions with myself. I say it to Heather a lot of the time. If the question is there, it is there because the answer is within you. All right? So a question will only arise in your life because you're ready to ask the actual or answer the actual question. The answer is within. Yes? So here you have 5G, and here you have the virus. I'm going to just call it the disease, because in reality, the coronavirus is a flu. It is just a flu, and yes, it originated. This particular coronavirus, which was a flu-type virus, was in the bats in the area in China that was actually found many kilometers, probably 100 kilometers away from where Wuhan is. But again, don't take my word for it. Go and do your research. What has happened is it's been manipulated. This virus has been manipulated at the hands of both Chinese and American scientists. That is a fact. You can find that on your internet. Yes, I'm not giving you anything that you should not already know. But how did this virus start appearing in places where travel had not yet been, or so-called travel had not yet been Noted. Is there an underlying current? Is there an underlying theory? Is there a back door to all of this? Yes, there is. Right? There is something happening in the shadows that you do not all have the insight to. And it is not ready to be exposed in totality at the moment, because if that happened, there would be more questions raised, more repulsion of the human species
Of the human species?
No, from the human species to their leaders, their governments, the powers that be, and there would be revolts. There would be so much that it would remind me probably of the great revolutions of France in the days of the Revolution. Now, again, we can get into all sorts of historical facts, and we won't here, okay? But
just to round up,
what you have is you have the 5G. Now, as I said, it was a wonderful format of microwaving going on. Because if you understand anything at all about microwave, the particular microwave that they've got with the 5G at this particular transmission that they're doing affects your physiology. It affects your physiology to the degree that your blood does not take in the correct amount of oxygen. What does the coronavirus attack? It attacks the lung. Where do you breathe? When you breathe, where does the air go? It goes into the lungs. If your body is not able to absorb the lung, so through the lungs, the air, the quantity that you need, you are going to pass out. You are going to die of a pleurisy. You are going to die of something that is related to a pneumonia-type effect. Because when the lungs cannot take in the oxygen, they actually start to weep on the inside, which is where you get the fluid. They start to break down. They're trying so hard that they actually they can't function properly, and so you get a pleurisy. You get a fluid on the lungs, and also on the outside of the lungs. But you see, this is not all reflected back to you.
So in a way, you are tying up 5G and coronavirus. I know we're going to be talking about this more.
A little bit, but there is so what I'm trying. I want you to understand. But here is as I always like to do. I like to give you this little bit of an answer, and then I throw in the curveball. So if you truly look at the current corona, where there actually are current coronavirus outbreaks, and you see it on a map, and then you go and you do the 5G rollout and where they've definitely got the 5G working, and then they'll also do the trials where they're still trialing it out. Yes, and you line these two up, you'll find that there is a large quantity where 5G is being rolled out or is currently established, and there are no, at this current stage, relatable, identifiable virus attacks. So the question is 5G at fault, or is it a targeted system? In other words, are there people living in certain areas of your world that have come into contact with this virus or have had this virus marker within them, and the 5G is being used as a weapon, as in biowarfare? Now, I'm not saying that it is. I'm asking you to ask the questions. Excuse me.
Well, yeah, you've left us with a fair bit there. We've got to fold it up.
Absolutely. But before I go, a little bit of housekeeping. If you do find that you are getting a little bit of a itchy, stuffy nose and a little bit of a scratchy throat, and the mind starts to worry, get out into some heat. Viruses or these particular flu virus type things hate the heat. So if you can get into a sauna, that will elevate your body temperature, get into it. If you live in a hot country, get outside. Stop putting the air conditioner on. Get outside and allow the heat to raise your body temperature. All right? Morning, afternoon, and evening. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Think of it like that. A tumbler of warm to hot water, teaspoon of salt, ordinary kitchen salt or Himalayan salt, probably
a whole teaspoon in water.
In a tumbler like that, a half teaspoon or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
To make a saline solution. Yes.
Okay, saline solution. Yep.
And then you gargle and spit.
Gotcha. Yep.
Gargle and spit. The warmer you can keep it in your throat, so it's not cold water, it's warm. Thinking about what I said to help destroy the virus and the bacteria in your throat, and then also to inhale it through the sinuses. Yes, a little bit disgusting, but up you do. Clean it out, spit it out. All right. Why am I saying this? Well, this is where it sits for a few days. Why is it sitting in there? Why doesn't it just go straight down to the lungs? Have you thought about this? Because this is where it will sit. This is the mucus. This is the mucus. This is the breeding ground. Yes? What is it doing? It's learning your DNA code.
Oh.
Now is your time, as soon as you feel it, and even before that, but don't go overboard. Just if you are not sick, if you are not feeling run down, if you are not feeling the effects of this flu, then perhaps just as a precaution, once a day, gargle with a good hot saline solution, and just clear the mucus out. Yes? And allow yourself.
And we say this not for you to be running around in fear, but
it's precaution.
Absolutely. Look after your body.
As far as I'm concerned, when you say the words, I am, everything that follows is your truth. Well, so I am healed, whole. I am in health. I am holistically balanced. I am Cifehtr.
And I am Heather, and I am complete, whole, holistic health and abundance. And I am going to say sayonara or goodbye until the next time, which is not far away. So stay tuned for more of these conversations going deeper. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to press subscribe.